I grew up knowing that money was serious without anyone ever explaining why. I knew it from the silence, the particular signs that fell in the room when certain envelopes arrived. The way conversations stopped when the subject came up. The things that were not said, the numbers that were never spoken out loud. The bills that were handled out of sight. The stress that lived in the air without ever being named as stress about money. It was just the atmosphere, the texture of certain evenings, the way adults' faces changed. I knew it from the tension, the arguments that weren't quite about money, but were absolutely about money. The pressure that sat on the shoulders of the adults in my house that I didn't have words for as a child, but I felt it with my whole body. Children are extraordinarily sensitive instruments. We pick up what we are not told. We absorb what is never explained. And what I absorbed, before I was old enough to have a bank account or understand what a bill was this. Money is hard to get, easy to lose, a source of shame when you don't have enough, and dangerous to want too much of. That was my money education. Not a classroom, not a conversation, just years of watching and absorbing and filing away in the part of the nervous system that stores things before the mind has language for them. And then I grew up and I started earning. And I did all the practical things, the budgets, the saving accounts, the learning about investments that I never saw modeled growing up, and the numbers improved. And the scarcity, the feeling of it, the dread of it, the low hum of not enough that lived in my chest did not go away. Because it was never about the numbers. It was always about the story. Welcome to Unapologetically Us. Real talk. No apologies. I'm Neeka, and today we are going somewhere most money conversations never go. Underneath the numbers, into the wound. Into the story you absorbed before you knew you were being taught. Into the scarcity that lives in the body long after the bank account changes. And into what it actually takes to rewrite it. Your money story was written before you had any say in it. I want to start there because I think a lot of us carry a low-grade shame about our financial patterns without understanding that those patterns were not chosen. They were inherited. They were absorbed. They were the only logical response to the environment we grew up in. Every household has a money culture, a set of beliefs, behaviors, and emotional responses around money that operate mostly below the surface. Some households talk about money openly, what things cost, how decisions are made, what the plan is. Most Caribbean households I know were not that. Money was adult business. Numbers were private. The children were not consulted and not informed, which meant the children learned anyway, from the anxiety in the room, from the arguments, from what was present and what was absent, from the things that couldn't be afforded and the way that was or wasn't explained. What did you learn? I want you to actually think about that as I talk. Not what you were taught explicitly, but what you absorbed. What was the unspoken money message in your home? Maybe it was, money is always almost running out and the job is to make it stretch. Maybe it was, you work hard and give everything and it's still never quite enough. Maybe it was, wanting more than what you have is greedy, is above your station, is not for people like us. Maybe it was, money causes pain, and the safest thing to do is not talk about it, not think about it, not get too attached to it, because it will leave anyway. These are not financial beliefs. They are survival beliefs. They are the conclusions a child draws from the evidence available to them. And they are remarkably sticky because they were written early, written deep, and written in the language of emotion and nervous system, not logic, which means you cannot think your way out of them. You have to feel your way out. which is slower, messier, and much more important. I also want to name the shame that lives around this, because I think a lot of women come to money conversations already braced for judgment, already anticipating being told they've done it wrong, spent too much, saved too little, made bad decisions. And the anticipatory shame makes honest conversations almost impossible. So let me say this clearly before we go any further. The money patterns you carry are not character flaws. They are the entirely predictable result of the education you received, the models you were given, and the wounds that were passed down to you without anyone's intention or awareness. You're not bad with money. You are a person who was handed a complicated story about money and did the best you could with it. That is the truth. And we are starting there. I need to speak specifically about the Caribbean money experience because it has particular textures that the generic financial wellness content never touches. The save for hard times culture. You know it. The money under the mattress, the account that is never touched, the refusal to spend on anything that's not strictly necessary, even when things are okay, even when there is enough, because enough can disappear, because things can change, because hard times are always potentially coming, and you need to be ready. That was wisdom in the context it came from. Our grandparents and great-grandparents survived on very little, in systems that were designed to keep them poor, in economies that were extractive rather than generative. The save for hard times culture was not paranoia. It was the rational response to a world that has been genuinely, repeatedly harsh. But what happens when you carry that response into a different context? When the hard times are not currently here? When there is enough? When spending on yourself, or investing in your future, or enjoying what you have earned would actually be the wise thing? But the body, running the old program, says no, says it's not safe, says you'll jinx it, says something bad is coming and you need to be ready. That is scarcity mindset. That is not a personality defect or a lack of ambition. It is a nervous system that was trained to expect lack and has not yet received the update that things are different now. There's also the shame dimension. And in Caribbean communities, this cuts both ways. The shame of not having enough, of struggling, of not being able to provide, of the gap between the public presentation and the private reality, and the shame of having too much or wanting to. The who do you think you are energy that can surround Caribbean women who earn well, who talk about building wealth, who refuse the story that money is always almost gone. I have felt both. The shame of not having enough in seasons where the numbers were genuinely hard, and the discomfort, almost guilt, that arrived when things improved. Like I needed to downplay it, keep it quiet, not let on that things were better in case it looked like I thought it was above something, in case it made the people I loved feel bad, in case it invited the evil eye, in case it got taken away for the crime of noticing it was there. That is a particular wound. The inability to fully receive your own abundance, the compulsion to minimize it, apologize for it, share it away faster than you can keep it, not from genuine generosity, but from the deep, uncomfortable feeling that having it somehow dangerous or wrong. And underneath all of this, if we go all the way down, there is history. There is the history of people who were told explicitly and through every system around them that wealth was not for them. The accumulation was not available to them. That the labor of their bodies was for other people's profit and not their own building. That history is in our bodies. It shaped the money stories our grandparents told themselves and their grandparents before them. And it is still doing work in us, mostly without our awareness, in ways that show up as personal failure, but are actually collective wound. Naming that does not excuse us from the work of changing our financial lives, but it does change the quality of the work. When you understand that your scarcity mindset is not weakness, but inheritance, when you can approach it with curiosity rather than shame, the work becomes possible in a way it never was when you were just beating yourself up about it. I want to talk about what scarcity feels like in the body, because I think this is the most underexplored part of money conversations and the most important. Scarcity mindset is not primarily a thought, it is a feeling, a physical state, a particular kind of contraction that happens in the chest or the stomach when money is involved. When you look at your account, when a bill arrives, when someone asks you to spend something, when an opportunity appears that requires investment, when you try to let yourself enjoy something you've earned, the contraction, the tightening, the immediate calculation of what could go wrong, the inability to fully land in a good financial moment because the nervous system is already preparing for the reversal. The way a pay rise or a good month feels, not like relief, but like temporary reprieve, because the other shoe is always somewhere about to drop. The other shoe is always about to drop. That is not a thought pattern you can think your way out of. You can know intellectually that you are financially stable. You can have the savings account and the emergency fund and the evidence of okay and still feel in the body like you are one bad month from catastrophe. Because the body is not running on our current reality. It is running on the program it was given. And the program was written in a house where one bad month was genuinely catastrophic. Healing scarcity in the body requires the body to be involved. This is where practical financial work and emotional or somatic work have to meet. It is not enough to change the numbers. The body needs new experiences. Experiences of having, of spending without catastrophe following, of receiving without immediately giving away, of sitting with abundance long enough for the nervous system to begin to believe it is real and it is safe. That takes time. It takes repetition. It takes a willingness to notice the contraction without immediately acting on it. To say, I feel the tightening. I know what this is. The catastrophe is not actually here. I'm going to breathe and stay present rather than to contract and brace. Small practices matter here. Sitting with your account open and breathing instead of closing it with one eye shut, spending something on yourself and not apologizing for it, receiving a financial compliment or recognition without immediately minimizing it, saying out loud, even if it feels like tempting fate, things are okay now. I'm allowed to feel that. I want to talk about what it actually looks like to begin rewriting your money story. And I want to be honest that it is both a practical project and a healing one. You need both. Neither one is sufficient alone. The practical work is real. Learning what you were not taught, how money moves, how to build, how to invest, how to make decisions from abundance rather than fear. There are resources for this. There are people who look like us teaching this now, which was not always the case. The practical education is available, and it matters, and you should pursue it. But the healing work comes first, or at least alongside. Because I have watched women, myself included, acquire all the financial knowledge and still sabotage, still overspend in exact categories that is most charged emotionally, still undersave in ways that don't make logical sense given what they know, still feel the contraction and act from it rather than through it. Because knowledge without healing is architecture without foundation. The building goes up and then something shifts underneath it. So what is the healing work? It starts as it always starts, with the story, your specific story. The first money memory. The feeling in the room when money was tight. The thing you decided about yourself in relation to money before you were old enough to interrogate the decision. That is where the rewrite begins. Not by rejecting the story, by witnessing it, by saying, this is what I absorbed. This is what I concluded. This is the wound that I got handed down to me and that I have been carrying. I see it now. I understand where it came from. And I'm going to begin, slowly and imperfectly, to write something different. The new story does not have to be money is easy and abundance flows freely if that feels false and ungrounded in your actual life. The new story can start somewhere much smaller and still be transformative. The new story can be, money is something I'm learning to understand. Money is something I'm allowed to have. Money coming in does not mean money going out. I'm allowed to enjoy what I earn. I'm allowed to build. I'm allowed to want more without making me greedy or ungrateful or above myself. Those small rewrites repeated in your thinking, in your decisions, in how you speak about money to yourself and to other people compound. They begin to lay down new grooves in the nervous system. They begin to build the evidence that abundance is safe, that having is survivable, that the other shoe does not always drop. What I'm still working on is spending on myself without the guilt audit that follows. I can justify spending on other people easily, on experiences, on gifts, on things that are framed as investments or necessities, but spending purely on my own pleasure, on something beautiful that serves no function except that I wanted it, still triggers a review, a mental accounting of whether I deserved it, whether it was wise, whether I should have saved it instead. I know where it comes from. I watch the adults in my life defer their own pleasures constantly, put everyone else first, wear things until they fell apart, not because they couldn't have done otherwise, but because spending on themselves felt unjustifiable in the face of everything else that needed to be covered. And I absorbed that as the definition of a responsible adult. I'm unlearning it, slowly. I have gotten better at the spending. The guilt audit is getting shorter. The recovery time, the time between the pleasure and the peace about the pleasure, is decreasing. That is progress. It doesn't feel dramatic, but it is real. I'm also learning to talk about money out loud without lowering my voice, without the secrecy reflex, without the sense that the numbers, whatever they are, should be kept private and slightly shameful. Talking about money openly, what I earn, what I'm building, what I'm working toward, is a practice in itself. It is a part of breaking the silence that started this whole wound in the first place. Your invitation this week is the one I mentioned earlier in the episode, and I want to bring it back because I think it is one of the most important things I will ask of you all season. Write down your first money memory, not your first time earning or spending, your first memory of money existing as a force in your life. How old were you? What was happening? Who was there? What did you feel in your body? What did you decide about money, about yourself, about safety, and having and wanting? You are not analyzing it. You are not judging it. You are not fixing it yet. You're just witnessing it. You are saying to that child, I see you. I see what you absorbed in that room. I understand why you concluded what you concluded. And I am here now, and we are going to figure out something different together. That is the beginning of the rewrite. Not a budget, not a savings plan, not a course. A child in a room absorbing something that was never explained, and an adult finally turning back to look. Start there. Everything else builds from that. That's episode 7 of Unapologetically Us. Real talk, no apologies. If this episode cracks something open, If it gave language to something you have felt but never been able to name, please share it. Pass it to the woman in your life who works hard and still feels broke inside, who earns more than her parents ever did and still cannot fully enjoy it, who needs someone to tell her that that wound underneath the numbers is real and it is healable. Come find me on YouTube, Spotify, and all other socials will be in the description. Tell me your first money memory if you're willing. Tell me what you absorbed. I want to hear it. This conversation is one we are just beginning. Next week is the final episode of season 1. What I had to unlearn to feel free. We are ending where everything really begins, with the beliefs we are handed before we knew we were receiving them, and what it looks like to finally, consciously choose something different. It is going to be full circle. I cannot wait to share it with you. Until then, be gentle with yourself around money this week. Check the account with both eyes open. Spend something small on yourself and let it be okay. And if the other shoe anxiety comes, name it. It is not the truth. It is just the old program running. You are allowed to have. You always were. I'm Neeka. This is Unapologetically Us. Real talk, no apologies. I'll see you next week for the last one of season 1.